No bullshit reviews.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Today we will be talking about the Type 90. This is Japan's top tier MBT. It was originally produced in 1980. Well, the first two prototypes were produced in 1980. It was finally sorted out and completely done in 1990. They produced 340-ish of these tanks. I think it's 341, but you never really know, right? And it's a fantastic tank. I mean, I don't know about real life, but in War Thunder, it's a great tank. Now, in real life, it uses a licensed built Japanese Rheinmetall 120mm. Not that the Rheinmetall is Japanese, but it was built in Japan, licensed from Germany. And it fires JM33, which is very similar, if not the same, as the M33 used on the Leopard 2A4. It has similar armor with decent protection. And it's overall the answer to the T-72 Soviet issue. Russia and these other countries were making very good tanks at the time, and Japan wanted to step up from the Type 74, so they did that with the Type 90. Before we jump into the in-game stats on this tank, I just want to say thank you guys for supporting this series. It is now a proper playlist, and if you want to check out any of the other no bullshit reviews, check them out in the playlist link down below. On top of that, there will be a poll in the comment section. I will pin it on top for what we should play next. I'll give you guys like 5 options and you can let me know. As far as some criticism, somebody said something about changing the display, or not the display, but the tags, because you can see enemies in replay through the trees and whatnot. Now, I thought about this for a little while, and I was like, yeah, you know, I understand why you'd want to do that. But at the same time, when you're watching a video, you can kind of see the trends of where people go, especially these replays, because I use good replays that I've had with a lot of kills. You can kind of see the trends of where people are going and where I'm sitting and where to look. So I figure I'm going to leave that in there for the time being, unless it's a huge outrage and people really want the tags gone. But let's hop into the tank. Let's talk about the Type 90's armor. So it's not useless. You will bounce some shots on occasion, or sometimes just eat shots. But the armor itself, nothing to boast about. Not really that good. It can stop upwards of 360mm of kinetic armor, or kinetic rounds, to the front of the turret, which, as we know, is basically nothing. Although the Abrams, the normal Abrams, and the IP will have trouble penning you from time to time. Pretty much everything else at 10.0 doesn't care. It really doesn't care. And that's fine, because this tank doesn't rely heavily on its armor, and it shouldn't. It should never be played like that. That being said, the crew, I guess, the amount of crew, plays an effect on this armor. You only get 3 crew in this tank, so the spacing on them, not that good, and where they sit gets you killed. You know, all you got to do is lose 2 crew members. If there's a shot in the right side of your tank, not the physical right side, but in the right spot on your tank, you're dead. You're down and you're out. So the armor on the Type 90 isn't anything to write home about, but the mobility, on the other hand, very, very good. This thing has a 1500 horsepower engine, only 3 crew members, so you get less weight, of course. That's a joke, but it's a relatively light tank. It's almost like a light MBT, and I treat it as such. It's basically if you took a Leopard and stripped it down. If you guys know anything about cars, it's the RS version of the Leopard. It's a GT3 RS of tanks. It's fantastic. It's super fast. It goes fast in a straight line. You never really get stuck in any situations, and you can back out of a lot of situations. Now, another thing about this tank that I like, although I don't use it all the time, and that's because I don't play tanks like this all the time. I think if I played the Type 90 a bunch more, I'd be using this feature a ton. And that is the suspension. You can raise, lower the front, lower the sides to get better gun depression or gun elevation depending on the terrain you're on. Now, this does take a couple seconds to actually come into effect. You have to wait while you lower the front of your tank. But if you're going over a berm in front of you, you get the added benefit of having better gun depression than basically anything on the battlefield. It turns your -9 or -10, whatever the normal stat card of this tank is, into something more like -20. Because of that, you lower the front all the way to the ground, slam that thing, and on top of it, you feel like Exhibit while doing it. You know, you get suspension. No, you get suspension. I guess that's Oprah, but you know what I mean. I heard you like suspension, so I put suspension in your suspension, so you got suspension while you got your suspension. That's more like Exhibit. So you can really pimp this ride. You can ride it low rider, and it's dope. I love doing that. The top speed, I don't really know what the top speed of this thing is. You have your stat card, but realistically, you never really touch the stat card rating. The stat card rating doesn't really do much for me. But all I know is it feels fast in the battlefield. I would say it's a little bit faster than a Leopard. Maybe not as fast as like a T80 fully upgraded. T80 is a go-kart, but this thing has a better reverse. It has good traverse, good track, good turn rotation, everything like that mobility-wise. A1 for an MBT. So you'll never get stuck in a bad situation. As long as you see the threat coming. If you know something's coming, you can have the time to move out and get out of there. We mentioned earlier that this gets the same gun as the Leopard 2A4, only licensed from Japan. Now, it does get the same ammo as the Leopard 2A4, and that is JM33, DM33, just under a different name. It's Japanese, and it's got the J in front of it. Now, this round is absolutely beast. It goes through anything on the battlefield, you will have zero issues. And on top of having zero issues with that, and I love this cannon, it is arguably one of my favorite cannons in the game. You don't get the top tier munition that the Leopard 2A5 gets now, but DM33, JM33, whatever you want to call it, does its job. And on top of that, the Type 90 gets a 5-second reload. So you get a 5-second reload on a DM33 firing cannon, which is absurd. It's absolutely nuts. So yeah, you take a crew member away from it, but you get a whole second faster reload than the Leopards, which just makes this tank that much better. Of course, this is spaded and aced, you get that 5-second reload, but it's definitely worth it in your top tier MBTs to put time into crew skill and put time into your gunner and crew training and spending that extra cash to do that. When I say extra cash, I would recommend an expert crew. If you don't want to spend gold on a tank, it can be hefty to put 2,100 gold on every crew that you want to ace a tank for. And I completely understand if you don't want to do that. The reload will be like 0.3 seconds higher, so maybe 5.3 or something along those lines without an expert or an ace crew. But an expert crew, definitely worth the couple mil that you'll spend on it. I think it's 1.9 for top tier MBTs. Could be wrong, maybe it's just 1 mil flat. It's pretty expensive, but it's definitely worth it to get a tank like this. Now, on top of what's good about the gun is, like I said, the platform it's on. We already talked about this tank and why I like it so much. This gun being on that platform, it's lower profile. You can lower it even lower profile. You have great gun depression at your disposal. It's a great reload, great round. Accuracy on the Rheinmetals are fantastic. This 120 mil, there's a reason it's used on every tank pretty much of this era and still to this day. Aside from the British, they like the Royal Ordnance, but that's besides the point. The Rheinmetall L44 is an absolute beast of a gun. Beast. It gets the best munitions, it's accurate, it's deadly accurate, and I love it. So on top of everything else I've enjoyed about this tank, and I've said I like about this tank, the gun is the icing on the cake. So you have a mobile gun platform that can dispatch of anything in 5 seconds or less. And that's why I like this tank. And that brings me to the verdict on this tank. I don't know what my rating scale will be from here on out. I have no idea. I usually just tell you if I enjoy a vehicle or not. But this is something you shouldn't miss. If you're grinding top tier tanks and you notice, hey, I like fast tanks, I like tanks that have good guns, I really like the Leopard. Let's say you finished your German tree. The pain of the Japanese tree grinding is 1,000% worth this tank and its top tier counterparts. The top tier Japan lineup has actually become so good recently, and not many people play it because it's such a tough grind to get up top tier in Japan. You don't have a lot of lineups leading up to it. You don't have a lot of options as far as casts and whatever. But if you can grind it, grit your teeth, stick through it, and get to this tank, I promise you, you will enjoy it. My personal lineup that I recommend is I use the Type 90, I use the Type 87, which is the Gepard copy, a T2, Mitsubishi T2, fastest jet in the game, which also gets good ordnance, and the Type 16. The Type 16 being a wheeled APC type of vehicle with a good 105 and darts. It's just a great fast lineup, and once they add a Japanese helicopter, this thing will full-fledged be one of the top contenders for best lineups in War Thunder. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any criticisms, which I should change, what do you think should be the direction of the series, let me know in the comment section down below. Also, if you're new to the channel, feel free to click that subscribe button. It helps me out. And make sure you turn notifications on if you don't want to miss a video as soon as it's posted. It's been your boy Slick, and I'll see you guys in the next one.